Hello and welcome to Eye on Africa. I'm Clarisse Fortuné. Our top stories today. For all British colonial atrocities against Kenyans, there can be no excuses. The words from King Charles, who starts his 4-day state visit in Kenya. The Springboks get a hero's welcome after landing in Johannesburg. Thousands came to greet the winning rugby champions, who gave South Africa a 4th title. Aiming for the Oscars, the first pidgin movie is hoping to make it on a red carpet after submitting Mami Wata for Best International Feature, the story of 2 sisters in Nigeria. King Charles III said there could be no excuse for British colonial atrocities against Kenyans. Although the 4-day state visit in Kenya has been billed as an opportunity to look to the future, the trip has been marked by calls for an apology. It's the British monarch's first tour of an African nation since becoming king last year and comes just weeks before Kenya celebrates the 60th anniversary of independence in December.
The wrongdoings of the past are a cause of the greatest sorrow and the deepest regret. There were abhorrent and unjustifiable acts of violence committed against Kenyans as they waged, as you said at the United Nations, a painful struggle for independence and sovereignty. And for that, there can be no excuse.
And our correspondent Olivia Bizot has more.
In that speech, King Charles acknowledged the more painful aspects of the shared history between Kenya and the UK. And that's important because it's the first time that a member of his family has done so. During the Mau Mau rebellion, more than 10,000 people were killed. It's widely seen as one of the most violent episodes of Britain's imperial past. And that explains why the royals are being greeted with mixed emotions here in Nairobi. But for the Mau Mau, that acknowledgement is not enough. They want a formal apology from the king, and they're not the only ones who are asking for this apology. Just a few weeks ago, I was in Kericho County in the west of the country, where I met people from the Kipsigis and Talai communities, and they want compensation and an apology from the British for the land which was stolen from them in order to plant tea. Today, those tea plantations are generating billions of euros for international corporations, while none of that money is going into the pockets of the original owners of that land. Meanwhile, in Nanyuki, about 200 kilometres outside of Nairobi, people there are asking for an apology for the damage caused by the British Army. Soldiers there have been accused of murder, they've been accused of sexual abuse and of damaging land near the military base. However, despite all of these demands, it's no surprise really that the king hasn't provided this apology, because the royal family are concerned that if they apologise, it will open the door to more demands for reparations.
The United States will expel Gabon, Niger and the Central African Republic from a special US-Africa trade program. According to the President Joe Biden, the countries were either involved in gross violations of human rights or not making progress towards democratic rule. Uganda will also be removed from the trade deal for recently passing a controversial anti-LGBT law. Clément Di Roma explains.
The battle continues between Uganda and its Western partners nearly 6 months after the implementation of an anti-LGBTQ+ law, which imposes harsh sentences, including the death penalty for what is termed aggravated homosexuality. President Museveni signed this highly popular law at the end of May, despite the disapproval of many partner countries of Kampala, who had threatened to withdraw their development aid. This Tuesday, the American President, Joe Biden, expressed his intention to halt duty-free Ugandan exports to the US through the AGWA, an agreement between Washington and several African countries. The suspension of Kampala is expected to take effect in January and will therefore affect this key sector of the Ugandan economy, representing nearly $200 million in annual revenue. The World Bank has also suspended the allocation of certain loans in the health sector. Since May, the local NGO Convening for Equality claims to have documented at least 300 cases of human rights violation, arrests, torture, various forms of violence, blackmail and expulsion. The impact of the law is already quite significant.
Now to Mali. Rebels claim to have taken over a UN base in another town of Kidal right after it was vacated by MINUSMA. The peacekeeping mission has now departed from 8 of its 13 bases in Mali after being accused by the junta of failing in its mission. Some residents in Kidal are now worried amid fears about mounting insecurity. Kaoli Lemboli reports.
It was one of the first regions in Mali to fall to rebel insurgents in 2012. More than 10 years later, Kidal has become the bastion of the separatist rebellion in northern Mali. As the UN mission implements its withdrawal from the country, residents in Kidal are worried, according to local authorities.
The presence of the Malian army and Wagner in the region of Kidal is creating panic among the civilian population. Because when the Malian army and Wagner pass through a region, people see the abuses committed against peaceful populations and shepherds. The population of Kidal is leaving to take refuge in Algeria, Niger, or the bush, leaving their lives behind.
The MINUSMA, as it's known, left its bases in Tessalit and Aguelhok around 1 week ago. It was meant to depart from Kidal in mid-November. But amid the mounting insecurity, it decided to speed up its departure, leaving the town in the hands of the mainly Tuareg separatists. The rebels, who aimed to establish an independent state, had struck a ceasefire with the government in 2014. It was followed by a peace agreement in 2015. But in August this year, a rebel alliance known as the Coordination of Azawad Movements resumed the fight against the Malian army. The current authorities, which came to power in a coup in 2020, have insisted on the need to restore sovereignty over the entire territory.
They were greeted as heroes. Thousands of South Africans braved a cold and wet weather to greet the Rugby World Cup winning Springboks when they finally arrived in Johannesburg after securing its 4th World Cup in Paris. Let's hear some fans, ecstatic fans in Johannesburg.
Well done, great. Unbelievable.
We love you guys so much. Woo!
Well done, guys, and you really made us proud.
We're all very happy. Let's listen to our correspondent Eunice Masson for more.
After an epic victory in France, the Springboks arrived back in South Africa at the OR Tambo International Airport, where hundreds of South Africans were waiting for them. Joy erupted when team captain Siya Kolisi lifted the Webb Ellis Cup in unison with every South African. Celebrations are not yet over, as the team will embark on a national victory tour across 4 provinces starting tomorrow. Last night, President Cyril Ramaphosa congratulated the team and said that despite the country that faces severe challenges, we can draw hope and encouragement from the Springboks' performance at this year's Rugby World Cup. And as tribute to all sporting achievements this year, the President declared the 15th of December a public holiday, setting off even more celebrations.
Now, it's the first ever film in pidgin English to be submitted to the Oscars. The team behind Mami Wata are hoping to grab the 2024 Oscar for Best International Feature. The film has already received a number of accolades, including at this year's Sundance Festival and the African Movie Academy Awards this weekend in Lagos. It tells the story of 2 sisters fighting to restore peace in their village. Caroline Lamboli took a peek.
Shot in black and white and performed exclusively in pidgin, Mami Wata is an exploration of the mythology of a mermaid deity present in West African folklore.
Most of the time, our stories were told orally. But, you know, those of us who grew up with our parents or with our grandmothers or grandfathers telling us folk stories, we know how visual those stories were. As you grow up as a filmmaker, you realize that these stories translate, on a cinematic level.
It's the 3rd Nigerian film to be submitted to the Oscars. The first 2, Lionheart and The Milkmaid, didn't make it through to the official nomination for the Academy Awards. Mami Wata has already won a number of accolades, including at the Sundance Film Festival and the Africa Movies Academy Awards, held this weekend in Lagos. At the latter awards ceremony, it received Best Nigerian Film, Best Achievement in Cinematography, and Best Achievement in Makeup.
I don't think we should wait for the Oscars to validate what we do. We just have to continue doing what we do. If we just do it for ourselves, it's fine enough. Let's not forget that we're 1.4 billion Africans in Africa. It's great if they want to include us, but at the same time, it shouldn't be the goal.
Just a few years ago, Mami Wata wouldn't even have been up for consideration. Films primarily in pidgin English have only been eligible for submission since 2020.
And that's it for this edition of Eye on Africa. Thank you for watching. Stay on France 24 for more news.